Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Please come closer, inshallah. Those that are leaving can please proceed outside. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina astafa amma ba'd. So we were continuing with the discussion of what are some of the benefits of learning Asbāb al-Nuzūl, as mentioned in Minhajuddin fi ulūm al-Qur'an, a book of Quranic sciences by Ustad Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Azim Az-Zurqani. So this is what we have been covering for the last nights. And the latest discussion was regarding what are the benefits of Asbāb al-Nuzūl. So the first benefit was that we learn with yaqeen and certainty what is the wisdom behind the revelation of the ayah. And number two, we covered last night, is that we seek assistance in understanding the ayah and resolving some ambiguities or objections that may be there. And in this context, we covered three examples. One was a potential misunderstanding regarding the ayah of the Qibla, facing the direction of the Qibla. The second one, what is the potential misunderstanding regarding this ayah, wherein it gives the impression that if anyone is happy about getting praised, they may face adabun alim. And this was a misunderstanding of Marwan ibn al-Hakam that was removed. And thirdly, we covered the misunderstanding regarding Safa and Marwa and the sa'i baynahuma, between them, of Urwa ibn Zubayr radiyallahu anhu. This misunderstanding was removed through Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu ta'ala anha, his khala, his aunt, explaining to him. So these are the three examples we covered. Moving on al-fa'ida al-thalitha, third benefit. Allama Zurqani rahmatullah alayhi, he says that daf'u tawahhum al-hasr, that sometimes the wording of the ayah may be such that it gives us the outwardly, as soon as we read it, it may imply restriction. And it may seem that this ayah is giving the meaning of exclusivity. This hukum, this ruling is exclusive, it's limited to what is mentioned in the ayah. That's called hasr. And there's a waham meaning we will have the misunderstanding, we may fall under the misconception that, wow, this ruling, it only applies here. Right? This is exactly opposite of the previous scenario. In the previous scenario, we may take the ruling and consider it open. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبُ فَإِنَّمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Wherever you face, it's Allah. So you can pray to the east, to west, to the north and south. It seems very open, whereas it actually is restricted. It's only for, as we covered, the traveler on his mode of conveyance outside of the city, praying nafal. So the ayah seems very broad, but in reality it is limited. Now over here, the ayah seems very limited, but it's actually broader. It's the exact opposite. Right? And how do we, it says, دَفْعُ تَوَهُمِ الْحَصَرِ عَمَّا يُفِيدُ بِظَاهِرِهِ الْحَصَرِ. Externally, if you just read the ayah, it seems that the ruling is very, very limited. But the reality is that the ruling is not limited, it's open beyond that. نحو قوله سبحانه وتعالى في سورة الأنعام. Like Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-An'am. Allah Ta'ala says, if you read this ayah, it says, قُل, say, O Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم, لا أجد فيما أوحي إلي محرما. I do not find in that which has been revealed unto me. Meaning, I do not find in the revelation, in the Qur'an, that someone, mashallah, is very much in a rush. May Allah make it easy for them. We don't know, they may have some difficulty, some hardship. May Allah Ta'ala make it easy for them. I'm sure there must be some circumstance that warrants that, otherwise they wouldn't do that. So, لا أجد فيما أوحي. Say, I don't find anything is haram. It's forbidden. Nothing is haram. على طاعم يطعمه. For a person who wants to eat, for him to eat. Nothing is haram. Illa, except the following. Number one, أن يكون ميتة. If it's a carrion, an animal that died, it's natural death. It was not slaughtered. أو دما مسفوحا, or flowing blood. Right? Or the blood is flowing. أو لحم خنزير, or the flesh of the swine, the pig. How many things here? Number 1 is maita, carrion. Number 2, dam, blood. And number 3, lahm khinzir, swine. So I don't find anything in the entire Quran that has been revealed unto me is haram, ala ta'imin yat'amuhu, for the one who wants to eat, for him to eat. Except that it is maita, it is a carrion, 1, or daman masfuhan, blood, or lahm khinzir, or swine. 3 things only. فَإِنَّهُ رِجْسٌ, this is impure, أو فسقا أهل لغير الله به, or it is a sinful offering in the name of other than Allah. Meaning, it's an animal. When they would slaughter it, they would say this is on the name of Lat, Al-Lat, or Al-Uzza, or Manat, or Hubal, or their false idols. So, okay, you want to consider this one, you can count this too. So it says Maita 1, Daman Masfuhan 2, Lahm Khinzir 3, and this Uhilla li ghayrillah 4. So 4 things are haram, and every single thing else beyond that is halal. So this is what, at first glance, if you look at it, then you have a second glance maybe, as we also had second glance, we had third glance, and any number of glances, you see that you can't find anything else haram. It looks like there's only these things haram, nothing else is haram. Because it's very restrictive. لا أجد فيما أوحي إلي محرما. I don't find anything else haram. إلا except for. In fact, this construction of starting off with something of negation in nafi, and thereafter saying illa except, is a very restrictive type of construction and syntax. This type of sentence is very familiar to all of us who speak Arabic and all of us who don't speak Arabic as well. This type of structure is commonly known to all those who are reciters of the kalima. Why? Because it is exactly how the kalima is. So any Muslim who recites the kalima should know this. And what is the kalima? La ilaha illallah. So this is the same type of sentence. You see this la is like the la ilaha. Then you have illallah, illa yakuna. What does la ilaha illallah mean? We are not new Muslims, mashallah, here, but there are maybe converts and reverts listening. But everyone, the first lesson, repeat after me the kalima shahada. We say la ilaha. There is no one worthy of worship illallah, except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what happens is, first we do nafi, we negate. No one worthy of worship illallah, except for Allah ta'ala. What does that mean? It means that only Allah is worthy of worship. Right? Al-ithbat ba'd al-nafi yufidul hasar. When you have nafi and you negate, thereafter you make an exception, it gives a meaning of exclusivity. So look, going back to the kalima, since this is a concept we are familiar with, we can use that as a good example. If someone says that, Allah is ilahi, Allah is my God, then that is good, but it's not good enough. How is it not good enough? Because the mushrikun also believed in Allah. And if Allah is a supreme being, then many of the different types of mushrikun of the past and the mushrikeen of today, they believe in one supreme God. And then they have godlings and goddesses and smaller minor gods. The Quraysh, they believed in Allah, but the mushrikun believed in Allah. Not the Quraysh after 10th year of Hijrah, after Fatih Makkah, or 8th year of Hijrah. The Quraysh in the Meccan period, the same ones who were torturing Rasulullah and Sahaba, they also believed in Allah. وَلَئِنْ سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. If you ask them who created the heavens and earth, لَيَقُولُونَ Allah. They will say Allah did. So they believed in Allah, but then they also believed in Lat, Uzza, Manat, Hubal, and all of these other gods. And they used to say, مَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا لِيُقَرِّبُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى. That we don't worship these other gods and godlings, minor gods. There's a capital G God, and then there's small, uppercase, lowercase. So subhanAllah, they would say that we worship them so that they can bring us closer to that Allah. Na'udhu billahi min dhalik. Ta'ala Allahu amma yushrikun. Allah is far above and beyond those false gods that they ascribe unto Him. So So if someone says, Allah is my God, is my worthy of worship, it is not enough. He has to say, La ilaha, there is no one worthy of worship, illallah. Right? So, for example, if a person says to his wife that, Anti zawjati, yeah, you are my wife. So it may not necessarily be enough because that's the one, that's great, but there may be a second one or a third or fourth somewhere that she doesn't know. So if he says, Anti zawjati or Anti habibati, you are my beloved, you are my beloved wife, that's great, but from her perspective it may not be enough. Until he says, La zawjati, I have no wife, ghayraki or illa anti, except for you. That means now she can rest assured. Okay, everything's okay. So this is what the sentence means, right? And if we look in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we look in the ayats of the Quran, we find this many places. And whenever we see that, we need to be alert. Like, La yu'minu ahadukum. None of you can be a true believer. حتى أكون أحب إليه من والده وولده والناس أجمعين. Until I am more beloved to him than his parents, than his children, than all of mankind. So we must love Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not something extra credit or kudos or great if you can do it, but it's rather no iman without it. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يكون هواه تبعا لما جئت به. None of you can be a true believer until even his desires are subjugated to the deen that I have brought, etc. So now that I build up the case, it becomes even more convincing that this ayah says that nothing is haram except for the following. But there are other things that are haram beyond this. So this ayah seems very restrictive, but in reality there are more things beyond that. And how in the world are we going to reach that conclusion? Is through the barakah through the blessing of the Asbāb al-Nuzūl. So he says, ذهب الشافعي إلى أن الحصر في هذه الآية غير مقصود. Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi, as well as Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, all the other Imams besides Imam Malik, they believe that this ayah is not restricted the way it apparently seems. واستعان على دفع توهمه بأنها نزلت بسبب أولئك الكفار الذين أبوا إلا أن يحرموا ما أحله الله ويحلوا ما حرم الله عنادا منهم. How did they come to this conclusion? It is because this ayah was revealed, the Asbāb al-Nuzūl is regarding those disbelievers, those mushrikeen of Makkah, the Quraysh. They were bent upon denial of the Quran, and they were so creative in their denial. They didn't just say, we don't believe in all of it, but they would come up with very strange concepts to out of their arrogance, out of their ignorance, out of their jahala and kibr, different motivating factors, inad, hatred, that they started declaring, of course, what the Quran says haram, they made it halal. Quran makes it haram, animals slaughtered on the name of idols, or these animals that die a natural death, they're not slaughtered properly, or blood, or swine. These haram things, they considered it halal. That's bad enough, right? But that wasn't enough to satiate them and make them feel happy how much we are causing pain to Muslims and disbelieving in Allah. They went beyond that as well. What did they end up doing? Those things that Allah made halal, this is the important part. Those things that Allah made halal, they also started making them haram. So different types of camels, different types of animals, they would release them and say, this animal is for our gods, and is for this idol, and nobody can touch it. This camel has given 10 offspring, so now it cannot be touched. They had all these different strange names for different animals, and say that nobody can eat these animals because they are now haram, even though they are actually halal. Allah Ta'ala speaks about this throughout the Quran. وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَا تَصِفُوا أَلْسِنَتُكُمُ الْكَذِبَ هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ لِتَفْتَرُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَفْتَرُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ لَا يُفْلِحُونَ. Do not allege things against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever your tongue comes up with all these lies against Allah, you say هَذَا halal, this is halal, meaning khinzir, pork, animals slaughtered on the name of idols, these are all halal. And also هذا haram, this animal we have dedicated for our gods, you can't touch it, it's haram. and you are alleging and making objections against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the context of this ayah was that they would come up with logic as well. They would say that, look, O Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you are telling us, as it comes in one of the hadith here, that قالوا ما ذبح الله لا تأكلون وما ذبحتم أنتم تأكلون, that whatever Allah Ta'ala, He has allowed it to die, He killed it, that's haram, and whatever you kill, that's halal. SubhanAllah. So this was an idea. They said that, see, if an animal that dies a natural death, they will say Allah killed it. If Allah killed it, it's haram, and if you kill it, it's halal. How does that make sense? And then this is أخرج أبو داود الحاكم. And another one, they said ما تذبح أنت بيدك بسكين فهو حلال. Whatever you slaughter with your own hands with a knife, it's halal. وما ذبح الله فهو حرام. What Allah Ta'ala allows it to die, it's haram. So they were coming up with these things, and they were saying that all of these different halal animals are haram. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was revealed this ayah in response to these individuals, and said that all of the different animals that are halal and you are declaring them haram, none of those things are haram. So over here, the actual objective was to clamp down on the mushrikeen of Makkah who are making all of these false claims about halal animals being haram. That none of those things are haram. All of those things that you are claiming that are haram are actually halal. So this is how, let me read exactly what Allama wrote here and translate it so we don't miss the point. He says here that these kuffar and mushrikun were making many halal animals haram. فنزلت الآية بهذا الحصر السوري شادة لهم ومحادة من الله ورسوله لا قصدا إلى حقيقة الحصر. So this ayah was revealed from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a challenge to them, in saying that, hey, why are you claiming these things are haram when none of these things are haram? And the reality of this being a restrictive sentence and of giving the meaning of exclusivity was not intended. نقل السبكي عن الشافعي أنه قال ما معناه. Imam Subki rahmatullah, great faqih Shafi'i, he narrates from Imam Shafi'i that Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi said, إن الكفار لما حرموا ما أحل الله وأحلوا ما حرم الله, that when the disbelievers, they started making Allah, what Allah declared as halal as haram, and what Allah declared as haram as halal, and they did this out of their hatred for Allah and His Rasul. And then this ayah came مناقضة لغرضهم, to break their statements and their objectives. So as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responding in anger, and He's saying لا حلال إلا ما حرمتموه. You know what reality is? There's nothing that's halal except for all the animals you have declared haram. Those are the only ones that are halal. Is out of anger Allah is saying this. وَلَا حَرَامَ إِلَّا مَا أَحْلَلْتُمُوهُ. In reality is there's nothing haram except for all those things that you declare as halal. That's the only one that is haram. نَازِلًا مَنْزِلَةً مَنْ يَقُولُ لَكَ. This is like out of anger a person says the following. He gives an example. Somebody says لَا تَأْكُلُ الْيَوْمَ حَلَاوَةً. Today you should not eat anything sweet. So even back then, Imam Shafi'i's time, there was no concept of diet or controlling blood sugar. That's what I was thinking. Wow, this is back from that time. They knew about halawa and sweet. It's not good for you. So somebody says, advises the doctor, or the loving wife tells the husband, "La ta'kul al-yawma halawa." Today, do not eat anything sweet. But even after eating 3-course, 4-course, 5-course meal, they say that inna fil batni la khalwa la yamluha illa halwa. Right. So rarely in the stomach there is a khalwa. There's you're full, right? Then no. There's an extra space. La yamluha. Again, same construction. La yamluha illa halwa. Nothing can fill it but sweets. So he said, la ta'kul al-yawma halawa. Don't eat any sweet today. So then the husband, he's like, why on my case? Why are you micromanaging me? Whatever you go ahead and buy on the credit card, I don't control you. Why are you controlling what I eat? So he's getting mad. The husband's getting mad. So what does he say? He says, لا أكل اليوم إلا حلاوة. Today I'm not going to eat anything but sweets. Right? So if he only eats sweets, he's going to get nauseated, but he's going to eat his meal, plus he's going to eat the dessert. He'll have maybe some sweet appetizers and sweet thing at the end. ختامه مسك. So he has a good beginning, good ending. He's going to eat sweets, as well as he's going to have his main course. So, but this is how, it's a very beautiful example Imam Shafi'i came up with, rahmatullah alayh. He says that somebody said, لا تأكل اليوم حلاوة. Don't eat anything sweet today. So he responds by saying, لا أكل اليوم إلا حلاوة. Today I will not eat anything but sweets. Does that mean he's not going to eat his main course? He's going to eat main course too. But what is he saying? He's like, why are you on my back? So the gharad here is to challenge. The objective is to challenge the person. لن نفي والإثبات على الحقيقة. It doesn't mean in reality he's doing nafi and isbat. He's saying, oh, I'm not going to eat anything. The only thing I'm going to eat is sweet. It doesn't mean that. He's just saying, don't say that to me. Don't eat sweets. I love sweets. I love you, but I love sweets. I don't know, more than you or like you. So anyway, so over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not saying all the things beyond these 4 things are halal. That's not the objective. فكأنه تعالى قال لا حرام إلا ما أحللتموه من الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير وما أهل لغير الله به. There's nothing haram except for those things you have started making halal. You said meita is halal, that's haram. You said blood is halal, that's actually haram. They used to drink the blood. You say that pork is haram, that's actually halal. You say it's halal, it's actually haram, and likewise. وَلَمْ يَقْصِدْ حِلَّ مَا وَرَاءَهُ. The intention from here is not to reach the conclusion that beyond these 4 things, everything in the world is halal. Okay? Imam al-Haramain said, وَهَذَا فِي غَايَةِ الْحُسْنِ. What a beautiful interpretation by Imam Shafi'i. وَلَوْلَا سَبَقَ الشَّافِعِي إِلَى ذَلِكَ. If Imam Shafi'i did not come up with this interpretation, then we would have been lost in how to interpret this ayah. Subhanallah. This is one example. And then the last one for today is this ayah. Can you bring the Mus'haf? Right? So this is an ayah where I want to go over the whole ayah that's beyond what's here. This is an ayah from Surah Ahqaf. We covered that, subhanallah, through one of the benefits of studying Asbāb al-Nuzūl is that we know what the specific wisdom is. Over here, the last benefit that we're talking about with an example, and then there's one final concluding one actually after this, is مَعْرِفَةُ مَنْ نَزَلَتْ فِيهِ الْآيَةُ عَلَى التَّعْيِينِ. Through the Asbāb al-Nuzūl, we can learn specifically regarding whom this ayah was revealed, so that we don't confuse it with anyone else. Like if there's an ayah, there's a story in the ayah, sometimes it could be a very, very positive story, sometimes it could be a negative story. If we don't know who the Asbāb al-Nuzūl is, then we may make a mistake in attributing it to someone. So Allāmah Zurqāni, he gave a specific example of a mistake made in attribution and how it was corrected. Okay? So this could apply to anything, like positive things too. Like Allah Ta'ala says, وَسَيُجَنَّبُهَا الْأَتْقَى. The one who fears Allah the most, he will be safe from the fire of Jahannam. الَّذِي يُؤْتِي مَالَهُ يَتَزَكَّى. He gives his money in the path of Allah to purify his heart or to purify his wealth. وَمَا لِأَحَدٍ عِنْدَهُ مِن نِعْمَةٍ تُجْزَى. When he's giving the money out in the path of Allah, it is not in compensation that he gets a deal in a bargain and he gets some type of discount or some ulterior motive, some kickback. That's what it means. وَمَا لِأَحَدٍ عِنْدَهُ مِن نِعْمَةٍ تُجْزَى إِلَّا ابْتِغَاءَ وَجْهِ رَبِّهِ الْأَعْلَى. He's only seeking the pleasure of Allah the Most High. وَلَسَوْفَ يَرْضَى. And he is going to reach such a level that it's not only that I will be pleased with him, but rather I will ensure that he is pleased. So this is a very good story. Wow, there's somebody who fears Allah, somebody who gives money in the path of Allah, he doesn't want anything in return, and Allah Ta'ala says he's safe in the fire of Jahannam. And Allah Ta'ala says, I'm going to give him so much, so much, so much until he is pleased. Just like Allah Ta'ala said about Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. So this is such a positive story. But who is it about? The name is not there. If you don't know the Asbāb al-Nuzūl, then we're going to be lost. We don't know who it is. So this is what he's saying. Knowing معرفة من نزلت فيه الآية على التعيين. Knowing with certainty who is the ayah referring to. حتى لا يشتبه بغيره. So you're not confused with someone else. Who is this ayah referring to? Is that in the beginning, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when he accepted Islam, his father had not accepted Islam yet. His name was Abu Quhafa. He accepted Islam very late. He accepted Islam in the 8th year of Hijrah, in the Fath Makkah. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu went and took his father's hand, who was blind. He didn't become blind now, he was blind for many years. He was blind before Hijrah too. Because at the time of Hijrah, he came to his home, and his son's home, Abu Bakr, and he said, look, Abu Bakr has left. He doesn't even care about, Asma and Aisha and the daughters at home. So the same Asma we spoke about 2 nights ago, the mother of Urwa ibn Zubair, she said, no, grandfather, he took care of us. So she took different pebbles, small pebbles, and she covered it with a sheet, and she brought her grandfather Abu Quhafa's hand and put it on the pile and said, look at all this money he left for us. He said, okay, you'll be fine. Even though he took everything, fi sabilillah. So he was blind from that time. So he brought him to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said that my father has come to take shahada. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said he is so old, so senior, because Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was the best friend of Rasulullah from Jahiliyyah and Islam, and he was just 2 years younger than him, and he died 2.5 years after him, both at the age of 63. So he said that now your friend's father is like an uncle. So he said, I would have come to him to give him shahada. Why did you bring the old man here? He said, no, he has come to seek Islam, to enter Islam. Then after he took the shahada, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu started crying. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, this is such a happy day, why are you crying? So he said that I had wanted my father to accept Islam for so many years. And I was waiting and trying and giving him da'wah and dua at night and da'wah in the day. Finally today he accepted Islam. So initially I was happy. But I remembered that there was a parallel story with you and your uncle, who was like your father Abu Talib. From the age of 8, he had raised you. 8. Because father died before he was born, mother up to 6, then Abdul Muttalib till 8. 6 to 8, 2 years. Then from 8 it was Abu Talib. So he had raised you, and you had tried so hard for him to accept Islam, but he didn't accept Islam. Then he was crying, and he said that if there were some way to make a bargain that I could sacrifice my wish of my father accepting Islam, and in exchange for that Allah would grant your wish that your uncle would accept Islam, I would love to make this bargain, because it is your happiness which gives me more happiness than my happiness. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Sadaqta ya Abu Bakr, you are true in what you are saying, you are not making a false claim of love. Subhanallah. So Abu Quhafa accepted Islam, then Abu Bakr, then his son Abdurrahman bin Abi Bakr accepted Islam, then his grandson as well. Among the 124,000 plus minus Sahaba, there is no other family in which 4 generations are not Muslim, but 4 generations are Sahabi, besides this family. So 4 generations are Sahaba. All. And to be a Sahabi, it doesn't mean that you just are born as a Muslim in the time of Rasulullah, but you are at the age where you have understanding. It's important because if you look at this ayah, what happens? So what happens is that, I was giving the وَسَيُجَنَّبُهَا الْأَتْقَى. The one who fears Allah, he's going to be safe from the fire. الَّذِي يُؤْتِي مَالَهُ يَتَزَكَّى. He gives the money in the path of Allah, and he doesn't receive anything in return. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, in the beginning of Islam, he was spending money in buying slaves, like Bilal ibn Rabah, the mu'adhin of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and who else? Ammar bin Yasir, and all of these slaves, he was buying the believing slaves that were getting whipped and beaten up by the mushrikeen masters. He would pay top dollar or top dirham or top dinar for them, and after buying them, then he would set them free for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Abu Quhafa, his father, was not a Muslim. He was objecting. He said, what are you doing? You're buying the slaves, you're supposed to sell them for profit. Then what happens? You end up 0, free them. What kind of ROI is this? where's the return on the investment? And then he said, okay, even if you want to free somebody, then what would happen is that just like, may Allah protect us in the very bad neighborhoods where their gangs are in complete control. So some of the youth who are out there, they'll say that if I don't become a member of a gang and become initiated in a gang, if I'm just by myself, then I will get beaten up, killed, etc. So I need a protection of a gang to be able to survive. Because you have to be part of some gang. You have to go through the initiation process, commit whatever crimes are necessary, get tattooed, etc., and join the gang. If you're not part of a gang, you won't have a support structure. So that is how it was in the Jahiliyyah, that the tribes would support one another. If somebody would not kill you because they know that your tribe has your back and they're going to take revenge, killing, qisas. Now, these people who are slaves, they were cut off from their tribes. So what would happen is that there was something called Aqd al-Muwalat, meaning if somebody frees somebody, Mawla Fulan, he's a freed slave, then there would be an agreement that he is now part of your tribe, like he is part of your tribe. So just like you have to support one another, you have to support the freed slave, and he's going to come to your aid too. So Abu Quhafa told his son, if you are freeing these people and you're not getting any monetary benefit, at least go out of your way to find strong individuals who are physically fit and who can fight, and they will be able to support you. So in case of battle or war, they'll be around to support you. So don't just, some of these slaves that you are freeing, they're very weak. Why are they weak? Because they've been tortured for so long. So this does not make sense. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, what did he say? I'm doing this not for financial reason to resell, nor am I doing it because I want their support. I'm doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what Allah ta'ala is saying. وَمَا لِأَحْدٍ عِنْدَهُ مِن نِعْمَةٍ تُجْزَى. He doesn't want any benefit in the dunya. إِلَّا ابْتِغَاءَ وَجْهِ رَبِّهِ الْأَعْلَى. He only seeks the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how do we know who the ayah is referring to? Again, through Asbāb al-Nuzūl. But over here, he wants to give us an example. He says, you will learn the Asbāb al-Nuzūl and who the ayah is referring to, and you can avoid a confusion. So he gives an example where there was a confusion. And this is the ayah from Surah Ahqaf. And the ayah is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا. This ayah 15 in Surah Ahqaf. That we have commanded. Wasayna is not just amarna, but strong command to the human being that he should be kind to his parents. Okay? This is the ayah before the one here. I'm just going back. That's why I asked him for the Mus'haf. حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ كُرْهًا وَوَضَعَتْهُ كُرْهًا. The mother, she bore the baby with pain upon pain. First trimester, second trimester, third trimester. The reason I'm mentioning pain upon pain is وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ, or كُرْهًا, pain upon pain. It's increasing, the discomfort. وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ 30 شهرا. She bears the baby, then she suckles the baby and feeds the baby her milk for months upon months, 30 months. حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ. Now this child, he reaches his full age. وَبَلَغَ 40 سَنَةً. He may reach the age of 40. Then the good son, what does he say? قَالَ رَبِّي أَوْزِعْنِي أَنْ أَشْكُرَ نِعْمَتَكَ الَّتِي أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيَّ. Oh my Lord, grant me the ability to be truly grateful for the blessings you have given me. وَعَلَى وَالِدَيَّ, the blessings you have given my parents. وَأَنْ أَعْمَلَ صَالِحًا تَرْضَاهُ, so I can do good deeds that will please you. وَأَصْلِحْ لِي فِي ذُرِّيَّتِي, and also rectify me in my progeny. إِنِّي تُبْتُ إِلَيْكَ, verily I repent to you, O Allah. وَإِنِّي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, verily I am one of the submitters, those who submit to you, Muslims. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ نَتَقَبَّلُ عَنْهُمْ, ayah number 16. These are those who Allah will accept them. أَحْسَنَ مَا عَمِلُوا, all the good deeds that they do, Allah will accept. وَنَتَجَاوَزُ عَنْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ, Allah will forgive their sins. فِي أَصْحَابِ الْجَنَّةِ, they are going to be the dwellers of Jannah. So this is all nice stuff, good stuff, right? The bad stuff is coming. وَعْدَ الصِّدْقِ الَّذِي كَانُوا يُوعَدُونَ, this is the true promise that they were given the promise. Ayah 16. Now we come to ayah 17, I believe is on here. This is ayah 17. You saw so Allah Ta'ala speaks about the rights of parents. The mother bore pain upon pain. And then now you grow up, the good son, he says, oh Allah, give me tawfiq to thank them. But then there's the bad son too. This is the question, who is the bad guy? So, وَالَّذِي قَالَ لِوَالِدَيْهِ. But there's another one. See, but. When you start off with but, then you're like, what happened before the but? There's another one who says to his parents, uffil lakuma, uff to you. That's not a good thing to say to the parents. Ata'idanini an ukhraja. Are both of you promising me? Right? Ata'idanini. Both of you, you're promising me an ukhraja, that I will be brought forth from the earth, that I'm going to be resurrected. وَقَدْ خَلَتِ الْقُرُونُ مِنْ قَبْلِ. And so many generations of people, they have died before me. They have passed on. They are gone into oblivion. But the parents, what are they saying? وَهُمَا يَسْتَغِيثَانِ اللَّهِ. This is like a lot of the parents of today. May Allah protect our children. They are both seeking help from Allah, calling out to Allah. يَسْتَغِيثَانِ, seeking ghawth, seeking help from Allah. And they're telling their son, وَيْلَكَ. They're saying to their son, woe unto you. Amin, believe. This is a fi'l amr, command. Amin. So it's like, woe unto you. Why are you not coming for Taraweeh with me? Or woe unto you. Waylaka, salli Taraweeh. Waylaka, yani, get up for suhoor. We can relate to this, unfortunately. Astaghfirullah. Alright, so get up. Amin. Well, alhamdulillah, I hope we do not have, na'udhu billah, murtad children, but it's a struggle. The struggle is real, right? So just like one of those kids' shirts that had the snuggle is real, right? So the struggle is real. It's the greatest jihad is raising the kids. وَيْلَكَ آمِنْ. Woe unto you believe. إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. Indeed, the promise of Allah is the true promise. فَيَقُولُ. But then what does this kid say? He says, مَا هَذَا إِلَّا. Again, the same thing. مَا هَذَا إِلَّا أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. This is nothing. This is all false. Except this is stories of the past people. Legends of the former peoples. It's just fiction. If you go to the library, it should be in the fiction section. It's made up. So there were ayat before this, and what do you think? There's also ayah after it. أولئك الذين حق عليهم القول في أمم قد خلت من قبلهم من الجن والإنس إنهم كانوا خاسرين. In short, Allah Ta'ala says that the same adab that came upon the previous nations is going to come on this guy, this boy, this man, this boy who became a man, like upon the jinn and ins that were prior to him, the humans and the jinn. إنهم كانوا خاسرين. They are losers. Okay. وَلِكُلٍّ دَرَجَاتٌ مِمَّا عَمِلُوا. So there was a good son and the bad son. The good son is going to get what he did, the bad son is going to get what he earned as well. وَلِيُوَفِّيَهُمْ أَعْمَالَهُمْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. Allah will give them exactly what they earned, nobody will have any dhulm. That was the whole passage. So, what's going on here is the Asbāb al-Nuzūl will of course identify who it is, and it will also remove a misconception. So this ayah, this is a good example because there was a misconception. What happened? أخرج البخاري. In Sahih Bukhari, there's a hadith من طريق يوسف بن ماهان قال مروان. Marwan ibn al-Hakam is the same character, he reappears here. He said that this ayah is revealed regarding Abdurrahman bin Abi Bakr. That's why I started talking about Abu Quhafa in the family. So that this bad boy is Abdurrahman bin Abi Bakr, not the good boy, the bad one. إِنَّ هَذَا الَّذِي أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ. This is the bad boy that Allah revealed the ayah about him. وَالَّذِي قَالَ لِوَالِدَيْهِ أُفِّ لَكُمَا. Now why he said that? Wallahu a'lam. There was a lot of, after Uthman radiallahu anhu's khilafah, there was a lot of political stuff going on, good stuff and bad stuff. But we learned from the bad parts of history too, not to repeat it. So there were, different political sides. So this is what he said. Now, what happened is he was blaming Abdurrahman bin Abi Bakr. This ayah is about him. But there was a defender of Abdurrahman bin Abi Bakr around, and not any defender. Who was the defender? His sister Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha. The one who 1/3 knowledge is revealed. فَقَالَتْ عَائِشَةُ مِنْ وَرَاءِ الْحِجَابِ. Even in Bukhari, the same مِنْ وَرَاءِ الْحِجَابِ comes up. She spoke out from behind the curtain, in case somebody was confused about that. Like, did she speak from the mimbar? Did she come to the mihrab, as is happening nowadays? All right? No, she did not come from the mimbar, nor did she speak. جَلَسَتْ عَلَى الْمِمْبَر. She came and sat upon the mimbar. صَعِدَتِ الْمِمْبَر. She climbed on the mimbar. No, we don't find that. Even here, the issue is about who is the bad guy. Marwan is saying it's Abdurrahman. the hijab is not even part of the discussion, but it's there in the narration. فقالت عائشة, Aisha رضي عنها said, من وراء الحجاب, from behind the curtain. ما أنزل الله فينا شيئا من القرآن إلا أن الله أنزل عذري. There is no ayah. ما أنزل, again the ma illa. No ayah regarding my family in the Quran except for the ayah where Allah Ta'ala is proving my bara'ah, that I am bari from the allegation of the ifk, that the munafiqun, they said about, I planned the rendezvous with Safwan ibn Mu'attal and stayed back and all of that. Na'udhu billah. That's the ayah about me and my family. This is not about my family. So she refuted that. But this person, he actually ended up doing tawbah. So she says, I know who it is, but I don't want to make him feel bad. But look, the other hadith mentions, وَأَخْرَجَ عَبْدُ الرَّزَّاقِ مِنْ طَرِيقٍ okay, this goes أنه سمع عائشة تنكر أن تكون الآية نزلت في عبد الرحمن بن أبي بكر وقالت إنما نزلت في فلان إن سمت رجلا. And another one says, she says, this ayah was not revealed about Abdul Rahman bin Abi Bakr, and it was revealed about so and so, and she named a man, but he's not repeating the name. This is something that happens in the past too. Like there's a woman who committed zina, and she said, Ya Rasulullah, purify me, I committed zina. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that, you are pregnant, go back. There was no warrant of arrest for her. Then she came back after she delivered a baby, Ya Rasulullah, purify me, tahirni. What's the purification for a married woman committing zina? Pelting to death. She came on her own. No warrant, no ankle bracelet, GPS tracker, nothing. So then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, no, your baby needs your milk. Go back. Then she came back with her baby, and the baby had a piece of bread and was eating the bread. She said, Ya Rasulullah, tahirni. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, okay, if you are doing iqrar. Iqrar is testifying against oneself. It is aqwa al-hujaj, the strongest form of evidence. Even if you have 4 people testifying, it could be that they are lying, they have an agenda. But if you are testifying against yourself, what agenda would you have? Unless you're insane. Any aqil person will not do this, right? So then they tied her up, and then when she was pelted, some blood came upon one sahabi and he made a face. But we don't want to blame the sahabi either, because if it's his own blood, it's najis. And if it's his beloved's blood, it's also najis. So it's not like, he looked down on her, perhaps. It was just the fact that it was blood. If you have beautiful, clean clothes and you have blood on it, blood is najis. Ghalidha, like we learned, is daman matsu'a, and flowing blood is haram and it's impure. So he just made a face, oh man, this blood is upon me. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, لَقَدْ تَابَتْ تَوْبَةً لَوْ قُسِمَتْ عَلَىٰ أَهْلِ الْحِجَازِ لَكَفَتُ. This woman did such a sincere tawbah that if it was distributed on Ahl al-Hijaz, from Makkah, Medina, Taif, the whole region, like in geography, there's like Najd, this one region in the center, like where Riyadh is, and then you have Hijaz. Hijaz is the western coast by the Red Sea. This area, Makkah, Medina, Taif area. The whole Hijaz, if it was distributed, this tawbah, it would be sufficient for everyone. So it's just known as Al-Imra Ghamidiyya, from the Banu Ghamid tribe, like Sa'ad al-Ghamidi, from the same tribe, right? So, and then you have like Muhajir Sulaym. من كانت هجرته إلى الله رسوله فهجرته إلى الله رسوله ومن كانت هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. Whoever does hijrah for the sake of a woman, then his hijrah is for the woman, unless he makes the proper intention. So it's called Muhajir Sulaym, the man who did hijrah for the love of Sulaym. But they don't remember, his name has intentionally been forgotten or not repeated. So there is a whole history of this, where people who committed different incidents that are not, the most praiseworthy, they would not take their name. But she said here that for sure it's not Abdurrahman bin Abi Bakr. There's another hadith in this book in which she said that, subhanallah, she said, وقالت والله ما هو به ولو شئت أن أسميه لسميته. He said, Wallahi, she said, this is not about Abdurrahman bin Abi Bakr. How dare you say that? If I wished, I could take him by name. Take it by name who this individual is. وَلَوْ شِئْتُ, if I wished, أَنْ أُسَمِّيَهُ, that I mention his name, لَسَمَّيْتُهُ, I would have mentioned his name. Right? So this is an example of, subhanallah, being able to identify a specific person and not falling into misunderstanding who it is. And lastly, it's a very simple thing. He says that it is through Asbāb al-Nuzūl that it facilitates comprehension and retention. One benefit, تَيْسِيرُ الْحِفْظ وَتَسْهِيرُ الْفَهَمِ. It becomes easy to remember the ayah, وَتَثْبِيتُ الْوَحِي, and to firmly establish the revelation in the mind of anyone who hears the ayah, when you know the story behind it. Right? So stories are a very, very important way of teaching and educating. So if you have kids, for example, you want to teach them any particular beautiful attribute. So if you sit there and you give them a whole lecture on shuja'a, bravery, on thakhawa, generosity, on adl, justice, all these sifah, they're going to fall asleep. They're not going to remember anything. But any of when you want to instill these attributes, if you give them a story of a shuja'a, not shuja'a, but shuja'a, story of a brave man who exemplified bravery, story of a generous man who exemplified generosity, story of a God-fearing man who exemplified taqwa. So instead of giving a bayan of a taqwa, give a story of a muttaqi. Then what happens? That will stick. Right? So the stories stick. That's what he says. It's going to be تثبيت الوحي في ذهن كل من يسمع الآية إذا عرف سببها. The story, the lesson of the ayah will stick if you know the story behind it. وذلك لأن ربط الأسباب بالمسببات والأحكام بالحوادث والحوادث بالأشخاص والأزمنة والأمكنة كل أولئك من دواعي تقرر الأشياء وانتقاشها في الذهن وسهولة استذكارها عند استذكار مقارناتها في الفكر وذلك هو قانون تداعي المعاني المقرر في علم النفس. So he says here that look, it's going to firmly establish the revelation in the mind of anyone who hears a verse, because linking the causes to the effects. If you know the sabab and the musabbab, and how does that relate to the events, knowing the events, connecting them to people, to times and places, all of these things will help in retention of the information. And he says, intiqashiha, naqsh is to imprint. It'll become imprinted in the mind. And it'll become easy to recall it. As in psychology, ilm al-nafs, we know that there is a law of association of ideas. Meaning, if things are related to one another, it becomes easy to remember and recollect. But this idea is, at the end of the day, it's not just about recollecting and remembering or knowing, because it's not about passing an exam. It's about bringing it into practice, making amal on it, and inshallah giving da'wah towards it. So that is why, again, it is a very, very beneficial thing for us to learn the Asbāb al-Nuzūl. We're going to end with this one, the whole section on benefits of learning Asbāb al-Nuzūl, and we will go on to the next chapter tomorrow. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. May Allah ta'ala give us tawfiq. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillah.